Welcome to the 90s, a period of incredibly baggy clothes, oversaturated picture colouring, and pretty shitty horror films.
Oh my God!
But they're not all bad, there's a few decent ones in there and we're going to talk about them. So, let's start with 1990, and we'll start with a film which is often called a film, but it's actually, I think, a TV miniseries, and that's It, Stephen King's It, starring Tim Curry. I feel kind of mean putting this in rank C, because I do like a lot of elements about this film, and I do think Tim Curry's performance as Pennywise is great.
And when you're down here with me,
You float down!
But the film/series has awful pacing, and let's be honest, when the kids are grown up, nobody cares past that point. Nobody cares. It's the scenes when they're kids that we all find interesting. So yeah, I'm going to give it C. Sorry, Tim. Also in 1990 is Misery, which I think gave Kathy Bates an Oscar, deservedly so, and is the portrayal of why you shouldn't be is the term stan? Well, anyway, you shouldn't be obsessed with celebrities. This is who you become if you're obsessed with celebrities.
Annie, whatever you're thinking about doing, please don't do it. Annie, for God's
Shh, darling. Trust me.
God's sake.
It's for the best.
Annie, please!
Almost done.
The thing I find so interesting and horrifying about this film is actually the story and concept. The idea that a fan could accidentally come across their idol and do this to them, I don't think is that far removed from reality. There's a lot of crazy people out there that call themselves fans. It's largely why I try to encourage people not to idolize celebrities and to just think of them as people with a different job than you. That literally is what they are. Kathy Bates' performance, in addition, as well as James Caan's performance, are great throughout, and Misery's rank S. Sticking with the 90s and a wave of 80s actors which moved into a very good an original idea for a movie, was Flatliners. This is such an interesting concept for a movie, and I'd like to see this redone, but not as Flatliners, the remake. I'd just like to see someone play with this concept more, because I think it's a great idea for horror, and I think Flatliners does a great job executing that idea too. The idea of each person getting the worst fears turned against them is a great idea. I know it's been tried and tested in the past, but it's still a good idea, and the Flatliners does it very well. The performance, I think pretty much everybody is. I don't even really like Julia Roberts all that much, but I think she's good in this film too. I think there's a particular scene when Kiefer Sutherland has an exchange with William Baldwin when they're talking about what fears have been stalking them, which is really funny.
Drag everybody. Come on. What happened to you, huh? You got caught with your videotapes down? And you swore a little girl on a playground. Oh. And now you're having bad dreams about your daddy. I'm really sorry.
I don't know if it's probably written to be funny, because it's certainly executed funny. And it's a standout scene from the movie, but throughout the film has great atmosphere and it's incredibly creepy. So Flatliners is rank A. Jacob's Ladder is the last film from 1990. It's a film that I watched when I was quite young. I was about 16, 17. Didn't really understand the concept behind the movie all that well. I rewatched it to make this tier list, and I had a far greater appreciation of what an excellent movie this is. This is psychological horror like no other. Again, blurring the lines between reality and fiction. It does a superb job of really blurring it so well that you as the viewer don't really know if these things are really happening or if it's just the character's perception of what's happening. I'm also not a fan of Tim Robbins, but I think he's great in this film too. For me to say that my opinion was turned around by it, and to give credit to Tim Robbins, because I really don't rate him as an actor at all, shows you just how good this film is. And I don't really want to tell you too much about it, just because I think it's an experience that everybody should go into blind. to get the true experience of it. I'm actually going to put Jacob's Ladder in the S rank, which really surprised me when I came into making this, because like I said, I really didn't think it was all that great before I rewatched it. 1991 gives us one of only a few horror films that have ever won an Oscar, and that's Silence of the Lambs. I was a bit torn whether or not to put this in a horror tier list, because really it's more of a psychological thriller. But I do think there are some scenes in it which definitely classify as horror. The atmosphere and tension throughout is definitely more in keeping with a horror than a thriller. So I think it is fair to put it in the horror category. It has got great performances from everybody throughout, and some of cinema's most standout scenes.
Closer, please. Closer.
I'm going to be a bit blasphemous here and say that I do think that Mads Mikkelsen's portrayal of Hannibal Lecter surpassed Anthony Hopkins. That's personal preference though. I get most people are going to disagree with me, that's just my personal preference. But that being said, Hopkins does a good job of being emotionless and creepy at the same time. It's not getting an S rank though. I'm going to give it A. 92 gives us an average movie and a superb movie. We'll start with the average one, that's Candyman. A lot of people really like this film, and I wanted to really like it. I think Tony Todd, why am I forgetting everybody's names? I think Tony Todd's performance as Candyman is great. I think his voice really fits this role and character really well.
Be my victim. I am the writing on the wall, the whisper.
And I like how they play with the idea that she might be the killer. I like that idea, I like that concept that Candyman might not be real and that she might just be losing her mind. I don't think it executes the concept as well as it could have done, because I don't think it blurred the lines quite as well as it could have done. But it is a good concept, and they do make a decent attempt at it. I think Virginia Madsen's great in this film, but overall it's not all that scary or horrifying. I'm going to put Candyman in the rank of B. I think that's fair. The second movie from 92 is Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula, which I think is one of the best gothic horror movies ever made. That's even in spite of Keanu Reeves' absolutely dire performance throughout the entire film.
No. No. Good.
And I feel bad criticizing him because I like him now as both an actor, and I think he seems like a real sweet dude. Gary Oldman just lights this film on fire. It's really hard to pick a best Gary Oldman performance, because the dude is literally superb in everything. I don't think I've ever seen a movie where Gary Oldman wasn't great in it. But his performance as Dracula, both young and old, are great. He's very charming and he's very erudite as the young Dracula.
All eternity, I love you too much to continue.
And he's incredibly chilling and creepy as the old Dracula.
Welcome to my home. Enter freely of your own will and leave some of the happiness you bring.
Count Dracula.
I am Dracula.
To play two roles as well as he does is really a feat that not many actors can pull off. And all in all, I just think this is a great piece of filmmaking, it's a great piece of acting, great piece of writing, it's great all round. Dracula, I'm gonna put Dracula in rank A. 93 gives us, I really don't know what kind of category to put this film in. It should really be horror, but it mixes in comedy far more than it should do. But at the same time, this was the first movie that ever really truly disgusted me when I saw it. The scene at the dinner table with the mum, the movie I'm talking about is Brain Dead. I should have told you at the beginning. But now that I've said that, you're going to know which dinner scene I'm talking about. It's gross. This film is gross. Start to finish.
Damn fine custard.
It is also really funny. It's not particularly scary, but I would say that the gross out humor in it is definitely, it's horrifying, especially at times. I don't know where to put this film. I really don't know where to put it. I'm going to put it in B. It's above average, it is horrifying, but it's not scary. So B seems fair. 1994 gives us quite a few films. We're going to start with Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which really set the stage for Wes Craven to make Scream, if you think about it, because although it came out and people didn't really like Wes Craven's New Nightmare very much, I think it's aged really, really well. It's the first horror movie to get really meta and to discuss the themes and ideas behind making horror movies and the kind of effects that it has on both fans, on the people that are in the films, and the people that make the films. It's a really superb and excellent and interesting film, and I really think more people should watch it, because even if I am going to go out on a limb and say I think this is the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it's way better than the original in my humble, maybe not so humble, opinion. I'm going to give it a rank B, because I think should it be A? I'm really not. Between A and B, I'm going to put it in B for safety's sake, but I really think this is a film most people should watch. It's really a lot better than people remember.
I know what's going on. Cut the effects!
The second movie from '94 is In the Mouth of Madness, which is a adaptation of a H.P. Lovecraft book, if I'm not mistaken, starring Sam Neill. The ideas behind it is great, the concept is great. An author that creates a book that can send people insane, and his books are so bone-chilling that they actually open a portal to hell. I think, as silly as it sounds, it works in the film, and it's really executed very well. There's a lot of really good, interesting dialogue exchanges. It plays with some good themes. Is it John? It is John Carpenter, and as usual, it's very well shot and edited, as pretty much every John Carpenter movie is. I think I'm going to give In the Mouth of Madness. That's going to be a B as well. I think that's fair. It's not worthy of being an A or an S, but it's definitely above average. 96 gives us a movie which pretty much everybody's seen, everybody's familiar with, and everybody rates highly for very good reason. That's Scream. Like I said, this is really where, if Wes Craven was beginning to play with the ideas of meta horror in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, then Scream is where he really perfected that idea. It's a movie which comes from a Kevin Williamson screenplay. If you're not familiar with Kevin Williamson, he is the creator and author of Dawson's Creek. Now, to think that Kevin Williamson went from writing Dawson's Creek to Scream is a pretty huge jump, if you ask me. It's a superb movie. It features the best opening 20 minutes that I had seen since I saw Jaws.
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
It's well paced, it's engaging, it's got some great dialogue. All of the characters are pretty engaging throughout. All in all, I think there's a reason why this is a classic piece of horror cinema, because it's such a superb film, start to finish. And it's really hard to criticize any aspect of it. If you're interested in seeing an alternate theory on what happened in the movie Scream, then you can click on this video up here, where I tell you all about a secret third killer and who it might be. I'm going to put Scream in rank S. How could it not be? 1997 is filled with a number of horror films, some of which are notable for good reason and some of which really aren't. I'll start with Event Horizon, which is Paul W.S. Anderson's, I don't think it's his first movie, but it's one of his first movies, and it's arguably his best movie by far. Event Horizon is basically Hellraiser in space mixed in with a bit of The Shining. And I think all of the actors in the film do a great job of portraying the real horror that they're going through. And the idea and concept is good. It is what Hollywood executives refer to as high concept.
I've got some problems here!
Be with me. Forever.
I'm going to put that in rank B. My second choice from 1997 is a film which probably most people haven't seen, but you really should. It is also the very first, and I think only, anime movie that's going to get on my lists, and that's Perfect Blue. A lot like the idea behind Misery, what happens when crazed fans get what they want. Perfect Blue plays with the same concepts, except it explores it from multiple angles. It's essentially a whodunit slasher movie, which centers around the idea of how fame affects both the person who becomes famous and the people who adore that person who becomes famous. It does a superb job of playing with these ideas all the way through the film. It's easy to dismiss it as less than horror because it's an anime, but actually it's just a good all-round film, and it's definitely a superb horror film. If you're interested in watching a horror film, a slasher horror film that you haven't seen before, have a go with Perfect Blue. I don't think you'll be disappointed, and I'm going to give it a rank A. We then have Scream 2, which is the follow-up to Scream 1, as surprising as that seems. Scream 2 does pretty much everything Scream 1 did, and it does it in pretty much the same way that Scream 1 did. I don't think it's quite as good as Scream 1, but I do think that it does a lot of things right. There are some clever exchanges of dialogue which explore the genre in general.
Mickey, the freaky Tarantino film student.
But if he's a suspect, so am I. So let's move on.
Well, let's not move on. Maybe you are a suspect.
Well, if I'm a suspect, you're a suspect.
You have a point. Okay, let's move on to
Hallie.
Sid's roommate.
Mm-hmm.
Serial killers are typically white males.
That's why it's perfect. It's sort of against the rules, but not really. Mrs. Voorhees was a terrific serial killer, and there's always...
And there is also some pretty good tenseful scenes. In particular, the scene when they crash the car and she has to creep past his unconscious body. I think it's a great scene. It's very tense.
Oh my God. Don't do that again.
But I think it does lose out on originality, unfortunately, because it's the same movie pretty much. I also think the killers were a lot easier to spot. I didn't spot either of the two killers in the first film. I didn't get either Stewie or Billy. In Scream 2, I identified both of them. Although I'll give Mickey, it was a bit tougher to identify than Billy's mom. Sorry, spoilers if you hadn't seen Scream 1 or 2, you fucking should have by now. So I think Scream 2 should probably go in rank A. I think that's fair. It's not an original film, but it is still a very well crafted film. Also in 97 we have Mimic, which is Guillermo del Toro's first foray into mainstream Hollywood cinema. The concept behind Mimic is really good, and from what I've read, this was a movie that was ripped apart by the studio, and there was a lot of meddling, which essentially made sure that Guillermo del Toro's original vision for the film, I hate using that phrase, but his original vision for the film never really got executed in the way that he wanted it to be. And I think that's so sad, because you can tell that underneath the bad editing and the changes to the story, you can see there is the bones of a really, really interesting film there. It does execute its scenes of horror really well.
I think there's a guy down there.
I've only really included it because I want to highlight that this has the bones of a good movie, but ultimately it is just average. So it gets ranked C. I'm going to be putting Cube, which is the last movie of 97, in rank F. I don't know why this film gets the plaudits that it gets. Cube is just a bunch of uninteresting, unrelatable characters being executed in elaborate ways. There's really not that's the film. There's nothing interesting about it, so it's rank F for me. You might as well not bother with it. 98 gives us the second inclusion of a Japanese horror movie, and that's Ringu. Most people know this film by its American counterpart, The Ring, but I think the Japanese one, I've included, when we come onto the 2000s, you'll see why I've included both versions of this film in different decades. They're in different decades anyway, but I've included them both for different reasons. The Japanese version executes its scares, horror, tension, and atmosphere a lot better than the American version does. And for those reasons, I have included it in this list, but I am only going to put it in rank B because it is very thin on the ground when it comes to characters and plot. But it does do the scenes that are creepy and atmospheric really well, so I think B is fair. 99 gives us 3 movies, all of which are good for different reasons. Personally speaking, the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Blair Witch Project. I don't think it's a very well executed film, and at the cinema the film gave me motion sickness because of the shocking use of terrible handycam. That being said, the idea behind it is good. I think the acting from the two people that are in it is good.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them.
And more than anything, I don't think any movie has ever executed a marketing campaign better than the Blair Witch Project did. When this film came out, it was towards the era when the internet started to become widespread and people started to have it in their homes on a regular basis. And it used internet marketing guerrilla tactics so well that a lot of people thought that the fake news reports that the film issued as part of its marketing campaign were real. And people thought the film was real. And I think that's so smart from a marketing perspective. It doesn't add much to the film, but it does. I have to give it credit for that. And also, it had a budget of about $40,000 and it made millions and millions. You know, it's really a testament to what you can do as an indie filmmaker if you really have the right idea and the right execution. For all those reasons, I'm going to put Blair Witch in rank B. Stir of Echoes is the next film I want to talk about from 99. Written by David Koepp. I don't know how you pronounce his name. I think it's directed by him too. Stars Kevin Bacon as a person who's hypnotized, and after he's hypnotized he can see ghosts. That concept sounds shit the way I've just presented it, but the way that the film plays with the concept is far better than I've just made it sound. Kevin Bacon, as usual, he's pretty much good in everything he's ever been in, but he's good in this as well, and he plays the role with a surprising level of emotional availability. And I think it's also got a pretty decent plot hidden in there as well. It's kind of whodunit, but not really, because you can't really figure out who done it, but the character is trying to figure out who done it. But it is a well-crafted, and interesting horror thriller. Some of the scares are pretty good, and the scenes where it's trying to create horror atmosphere does a good job of doing that. So I don't feel at all mean by saying that this is above average, but not quite to the standard of other films. So I think rank B is fair for Stir of Echoes, but it really does only narrowly miss out on rank A. The Sixth Sense is the last horror film I'm going to talk about from the 90s, and we'll do the rank first because I was torn between whether to put this in rank A or B. And I know some people are going to think that that's harsh, that it should probably be in rank S. Let's put it in rank A, and I'll explain why. The scenes where it does scares, it does very well.
Mama? No. Dinner is not ready. What are you gonna do? You can't hurt me anymore! Letty, you're at...
The plot in general is incredibly enjoyable the first time round. We'll talk about that in a second. The performances from everyone are great, and I think the concept behind it is really well executed. The reason why I'm not putting it in rank S and why I battled with whether or not to put it in rank A is because on repeated viewings the film doesn't hold its weight quite as well. There's a lot of scenes where on repeated viewing it's very easy to just sit there and go, oh, this doesn't make sense now that I know what the ending is. And those scenes are really crafted just to trick you as the viewer. Now, I don't think you should do that as a screenwriter. I don't think you should ever create scenes just to trick someone. If the scene tricks someone as a side effect, then great. But you should really be making a film which holds its own internal logic soundly throughout the entire film. There are multiple scenes when Bruce Willis is just sat down, when Haley Joel Osment comes in, and he sat down as though he's been talking to the mum. But I find it very difficult to believe that Bruce Willis's character wouldn't at any point have thought, oh shit, this is weird. Why don't I remember talking to this woman at all? Why doesn't she ever talk to me? How did I get in this house? These are all questions that only work the first time round. The second time round, you realise that actually they're a bit flimsy. That being said, it is an incredibly good horror thriller. It does do its scares really well. The acting is solid throughout. And I think the final performance from Toni Collette in the scene when Haley Joel Osment finally admits that he can see ghosts and tells her about her mum. Dynamite. I don't know how she didn't win an Oscar for that scene. She fucking deserved it.
Wanted me to tell you she saw you dance. She said, when you were little, you and her had a fight right before your dance recital. You thought she didn't come to see you dance. She did. She hid in the back so you wouldn't see. She said you were like an angel. She said you came to the place where they buried her. Asked her a question. She said the answer is every day. What did you ask?
Do I make her proud?
So rank A for The Sixth Sense. So that's it for the 90s. We got one more decade to go, and that is the 2000s. I'm not going to do the 2010s just because I don't like how 2010s sounds, because I'm a bit of a dick. So I'll see you in the 2000s.